This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yunxiao was overjoyed. He stared at him and said, "So you do know? Tell me." Yuan Gaohan was stunned for a moment before revealing an indifferent look. "This isn't a secret. The immemorial astral wind is 1,000 miles away. If you follow the direction of the sealed wolf star, you'll naturally encounter it. That place is an ancient battlefield and it's extremely desolate. The immemorial astral winds have a certain pattern, and once they appear, they form their own region that envelopes the entire ancient battlefield. Once living beings touch it, they will immediately turn into mummies without any exception." "Yes, I understand. I have another question," Yunxiao said. "How are you going to go back from here? I've seen the entire area and there's no interdomain teleportation formation. The teleportation formation in the holy region should be a one-way teleportation, right? Although my main body can't sense what's happening to me right now, there's still a coordinate connection between the two," Yuan Gaohan said. "As long as I perform a space shuttle technique, I can return in an extremely short time." "An extremely short time? So, I can't let you go so soon?" Yunxiao frowned. "You mean I can't release you so soon?" "What? Why?" Yuan Gaohan was startled, not knowing what he was up to. "If I let you go, your real body will immediately know what has happened here, and then you will open the domain teleportation array and send a large number of experts here," Yunxiao said. "Wouldn't I be dead by then?" Then what do you want in order to let me go?" Yuan Gaohan angrily said. Yunxiao chuckled. "I'm going to the Gale Land in the ancient times. Come with me. I'll let you go when you come back." Yuan Gaohan's expression changed greatly, and he said in horror, "No. No way. That's the elemental realm verse. Death is the only thing there." "You're a shapeshifter," Yunxiao said. "What are you afraid of?" Yuan Gaohan looked at him coldly and said, "What do you know? Even if it was a shapeshifting body, it could not resist the erosion of elemental power. I'm not that stupid to send you to your death." Yunxiao frowned. "Is it really that terrifying?" he asked. "I'll need you to lead the way." Yuan Gaohan was shocked and roared, "Don't go too far. Otherwise, since I'm going to die anyway, I might as well kill you even if I have to risk my life." His body emitted a violent aura, and the suppressed anger also exploded at this moment. The surrounding space was distorted to the extreme, and a large amount of starlight was devoured. It was abnormally powerful. In fact, with his strength, he could easily blow up Yunxiao. Yunxiao could only smile wryly in his heart. He did not have the strength to fight with his opponent, so he could only hold the soul-devouring banner in his hand and scare them. His face immediately darkened as he licked his lips and threatened. "Such powerful soul power, I like it. Even my golden soul slave can't eat that much. I can still make a few soul-nurturing pills." Yuan Gaohan's face was extremely pale. The soul-nurturing pill was a type of pill exclusive to the soul devourer race. As the name suggested, it was used to feed soul slaves, but it was refined from the soul of living creatures. Due to his fear, the distorted space around him also shook with his trembling body. He shouted, "You untrustworthy animal. As soon as something happens to me, my main body will immediately sense it. Not only will it immediately open the teleportation array and come to take your life, but it will also exterminate the Soul Devourer clan." Yunxiao looked at him coldly and said, "I'm going to die in the immemorial astral wind anyway, so what's there to be afraid of? As for the Soul Devourers, I'm already dead. What does the sect have to do with me?" "You are." Yuan Gaohan was anxious. He had never seen such a ruffian before. He had always had a noble status. Unless it was someone of the same level, who would dare to speak to him like this? He was immediately rendered speechless, not knowing what to say. Yunxiao's face immediately turned red when he saw the man's anxiety, and he said in a kind voice, "Master Yuan, on one hand, you will be completely demoted to an 8th-tier alchemist, and on the other hand, you will take a risk with me. Besides, this ancient desolate land is a battlefield of ancient almighty warriors, and there have always been many rare treasures. Are you not tempted at all? Yuan Gohan's heart also throbbed with excitement. The first year he had come up to this foreign starry sky, he had already discovered that it was very strange and had picked up many good things, but it was also extremely dangerous. If he had not gone into seclusion to cultivate, he would have gone back and combined with his main body before bringing the experts back. So what if I'm tempted? Even if there are good things, do you think you'll share them with me? I'll thank the heavens if you don't extort me. Put away your threatening gaze, I know you don't dare to kill me. Yuan Gaohan grumbled to the extreme. His last sentence was a test and also to boost his courage. Unless it was the last resort, he was not willing to give up his current soul body no matter what. It had taken him more than 50 years to reach the 8th level from the time his primary soul had been divided into two. If this soul were to fall, the main body would definitely be severely injured, and his life would basically be over. Yunxiao laughed in his heart and said, "Who said so? I can swear on this soul-devouring banner that as long as you accompany me to the land of astral wind in the ancient times, all the benefits will belong to whoever gets them, and I will let you go after the matter is done. Otherwise, the golden soul in this soul-devouring banner will die and no longer listen to my command." Yuan Gohan's expression changed. He knew that the soul-devouring tribe's oath to the soul-devouring banner was the most serious oath they could make. The importance of the soul slave in the soul-devouring banner was the same as his starlight soul body. They were both refined from a low level, and it was extremely difficult to get a second one. Good. I promise you, but on this journey, we must be treated as equals. You can't threaten me. Yuan Gaohan felt that being so overbearing by a junior was very hurtful. Yunxiao was overjoyed. Not only had he obtained the supreme starlight soul refining technique, but he had also found a powerful guide. He nodded and said, "Of course. You're a senior in the art of cultivation, the Big Dipper Mount Tai, and I can't even wait to respect you." Looking at Yunxiao's sincere and respectful eyes, Yuan Gaohan rubbed his eyes. After a moment of surprise, he wished he could punch Yunxiao's face flat. After the two of them finished their discussion, they rushed in the direction of the sealed wolf star. In fact, Yuan Gaohan was also very curious about the outer realm's starry sky, but the more important thing was to break through to the 9th layer soul body, so he had been delayed and did not explore it. Soon, a large number of man-made traces appeared in front of them. There were huge rocks and all kinds of murals. It turned out to be the ruins of a huge palace. There were many rusty broken weapons on the ground, and even some dried corpses that looked like dead wood. On the main beams of the palace ruins, there were all kinds of patterns engraved on them. The knife technique was vigorous and powerful, and just the knife carvings gave people a feeling that it was not simple. There were also a large number of birds, animals, immortal zoisha, and spiritual herbs. They had long gone extinct in the realm of heavenly martial arts and only existed in the descriptions of various ancient texts. Yunxiao looked over bit by bit, not wanting to miss any details. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he found that many of the boulders nearby had traces of man-made damage, but they were not the original damage. Clearly, someone had forcibly erased some of the chisels with force, not wanting people to see the contents on them, and many of the boulders had cracked as a result. These are Kasaya. Yunxiao turned to Yuan Gaohan and asked, "What was originally recorded in this?" Yuan Gaohan's heart skipped a beat and he quickly said, "How would I know?" But, how could his panicked look escape Yunxiao's eyes? "Master Yuan, since we've come to an agreement to explore the secrets of the outer realm, we shouldn't keep anything to ourselves," Yunxiao said unhurriedly as he walked back and forth among the gravel. Yuan Gaohan snorted angrily and said, I didn't want to. You forced me. Besides, I've only been here for 10 years. Look at the damage, it's been at least 100 years. Yunxiao picked up a crushed stone and weighed it in his hand, as if he was thinking about its composition. Then, he snorted coldly and threw it behind his head, saying, "Don't take me for a fool. In this ancient desolate land, only the holy region has the teleportation array, right? Only the ancient evergreen tree in the demon plains can open the space passage. Even if it was wiped away 100 years ago, it must be the work of the holy region. Don't tell me you don't know. If our cooperation is to be so guarded against each other and hide things from each other, then I can only painfully break my own oath. Yuan Gaohan was startled. Although he was a spirit, he still felt a chill all over his body. How could this young man's thinking be so sharp? It felt like talking to him was like talking to a grandmaster of the same level. Whether it was his observation skills or his words, they were not something an ordinary teenager could have. Moreover, he had an 8th-tier soul body, so he could tell at a glance that this young man's condition was very normal. It was definitely not some spiritual will possession or something of the sort. Could it be that the Soul Devourer race had produced such a genius? In the entire continent of the realm of heavenly martial arts, there were countless people in the younger generation who had the strength and soul power of the 6th step. But few had both. In addition to this kind of vision and wisdom, it was almost unique. After a few decades, how terrifying would that be? His fear of the Soul Devourer race deepened. No wonder Han Yinshan would take the risk of offending me to nurture this young man. Master Yuan, are you really going to force me to break my oath? Yunxiao's cold words startled him out of his thoughts. Yuan Gaohan licked his lips and swallowed hard before saying, "All right, you are indeed very smart. The imprints on these huge rocks were indeed destroyed by people of the sanctuary. As for the contents, you already know." What? Yunxiao's brows furrowed as he asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" These huge rocks were originally engraved with the Starlight Soul refining technique. Yuan Gaohan said with a bitter smile. Yunxiao was taken aback as he looked at the destroyed boulders around him in shock and muttered to himself, so the Starlight Soul refining technique was taken from here. The composition of these boulders is not simple, and it doesn't seem to be natural. This Starlight Soul refining technique must have been an extremely powerful cultivation technique back in the ancient times. Humph. Yuan Gohan's heart ached at the thought of the Starlight Soul refining technique, and he snorted angrily, "That goes without saying. These scriptures recorded in Tadpole script are all supreme divine arts." Yunxiao gently jumped onto a big rock and sat down cross-legged, then beckoned to Yuan Gaohan and said, "Old Yuan, come and sit down. Let's talk about the golden tadpole-like characters. You've been in the holy region for so many years, so you should have a lot of information, right?" Old Yuan. Yuan Gohan's mouth was wide open. Yunxiao looked like an old friend, calling him around and chatting at will. And the strangest thing was that he did not feel uncomfortable, but felt very easygoing. This was a situation that had never happened before among any of the younger generation. Even the true geniuses of the continent would always be submissive and respectful when they saw him. If he didn't open his mouth, he wouldn't dare to say a word. Not to mention calling him Old Yuan and using the soul-devouring banner to threaten and bribe him. Yuan Gaohan wanted to get angry, he wanted to throw a tantrum, but for some reason, he couldn't get angry. There was no sense of disharmony, as if he should have walked over and had a good talk with him. He suppressed his curiosity and snorted, "Since Han Yinshan values you so much, I'm sure he must have told you a lot about this." "Yes, I've seen some of them before, but my knowledge is very limited." Han Qianqian said that in the realm of heavenly martial arts, the ones who studied these things the most were the Holy Region and the Sea of Soul Formation. Yunxiao stammered for a moment. He felt a little aggrieved to be asked to call Han Yinshan master, so he snorted coldly in his heart and said to himself, "Master Han, you're too kind. Han Yinshan, I'll let you take advantage of me first, but I'll get back at you with interest next time." The pitiful Han Yinshan had made a great enemy of Yuan Gaohan for no reason, and was even hated by the instigator. He was really innocent. As expected, he was Han Yinshan's disciple. Having made up his mind, Yuan Gaohan then revealed a lofty attitude and explained, "The language we use now is only used to exchange information. In ancient times, there was a language that could not only exchange information but also condense the laws of the world. These tadpole-like writing styles contain a certain amount of information and also represent a certain amount of laws of the world." Yunxiao's heart was a little stifled, so he interrupted, "I already know the basics, so let's talk about the more profound things. Has anyone counted the total number of the origins and meanings of these words?" How many words have the saints deciphered in this area? Yuan Gaohan was stunned and pondered. There's no conclusion as to where these words came from. However, it's certain that it's related to the ancient godly state experts. Some people even speculate that these words contain the secrets of the 10 Directions Divine Realm. 10 Directions Divine Realm. Yunxiao's heart skipped a beat. He had the same thought. Although he had known of the existence of this language a long time ago, he had never deliberately studied it. In the Sea of Soul Formation, there was a 9th-tier alchemist who was immersed in this kind of research all day long, and he was none other than Dan Jing, the master of Bailey Gongjin, the president of the Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association. He must have gained a lot of knowledge, and he would definitely pay visit to the alchemist someday. Yuan Gaohan revealed a regretful expression and sighed. Yes, the 10 Directions Divine Realm is extremely powerful. In the past tens of thousands of years, only a few legendary existences have reached this realm. I don't know if it's true or not, as there are no records left on the continent. His eyes were filled with endless reverence and yearning. Yunxiao's heart jolted as he recalled that he had just met a wisp of Yi Nanshan's divine sense, which had been sealed for thousands of years. Unfortunately, time was of the essence, and that wisp of divine sense didn't have the extra energy to tell him too much. Then how many of these words are recorded in the holy region? How many did you guys crack? Yunxiao's pupils constricted as he asked the question that he wanted to know the most. Yuan Gaohan's heart trembled. He gave Yunxiao a look and said, "These are top secrets. Even I don't know." "How many more did Han Yinshan crack?" he asked coldly. "How about this?" Yunxiao smiled and said, "How about we exchange?" Yuan Gaohan's expression changed greatly, his eyes darkening as he angrily said, "I don't know this kind of writing." Yunxiao smiled wryly in his heart when he saw the man's intense reaction. The man must not believe that he knew a few of these words, and was afraid that he would get it empty-handed if he was threatened or tempted. Well, it was indeed not a good time for him to reveal these things now. Otherwise, the holy region would order to capture him alive just because of these golden tadpole-like characters. Yunxiao laughed as he jumped off the boulder and walked toward the ruins. "Let's go. There will be more chances in the future." Yuan Gaohan snorted coldly, a hint of fear in his heart. The value of these golden tadpole-like characters was even higher than that of the Starlight Soul tampering technique. Deciphering each character was a great fortune that could not be bought with even 10,000 gold. After that, Yunxiao did not mention the tadpole-like text again, but began to rummage through the ruins. This place had already been carefully cleaned up by the Sanctum's people, so there was absolutely nothing good left behind. Sure enough, apart from the murals, nothing was found. The murals were intermittent and could not be pieced together into a complete story. They were probably telling some things about the sacrifice. The entire ruins were extremely vast, and what they saw was an endless land. On it were the remains of buildings of the same style, which had not weathered in the starry sky and retained a great deal of their original appearance. In ancient times, it should have been the residence of some sect or clan, but for some reason, it had become a battlefield and was even abandoned in the outer space. Although these buildings have suffered heavy losses, they should have been destroyed in one go back then. They haven't suffered any further damage over the countless years, which means that there are no immemorial astral winds here. Yunxiao turned around and stared at Yuan Gaohan, waiting for him to explain. Yuan Gaohan was secretly shocked by his careful observation and said, "The sanctuary has investigated these places many times. There's a special scroll of the desolate ancient land in the library, which records several conjectures about the formation of these outer realm ruins as well as the situation of the immemorial astral winds. One of the most credible theories was that when this ancient desolate land was abandoned in the outer space, a large amount of violent power was still wreaking havoc on it. When these powers reached a balance, they formed the most primitive wind. The strong wind destroyed all the buildings on the land. At this time, one or several powerful people couldn't bear to see this piece of land destroyed, so they worked together to open up a space and imprison the wind. Over countless years, it slowly evolved into the omnipresent astral wind." "Imprison?" Yunxiao frowned and said, "Which idiot made this speculation? If the ordinary wind had the ability to imprison it, it would have been destroyed." If it was to protect the ruins, why would it need to imprison it? Wouldn't it be better to just destroy it? Let's not care about that. Where is the astral wind being imprisoned? Yuan Gaohan was taken aback, but then he realized that it made sense. He looked at Yunxiao strangely as he pointed to the sky and said, just above. Yunxiao followed his finger and looked over. The void was filled with starlight, and meteors streaked across the sky from time to time. It was extremely quiet, without any wind. It's sealed by rule force? The surprise in Yuan Gohan's heart was getting more and more intense. He had casually pointed out something, but the other party was able to see through it. This kind of experience and analytical ability was simply too shocking. A trace of doubt appeared in his heart, and he asked, "Can you tell what kind of rule force it is?" With a hesitant look on his face, Yunxiao looked around under the starry sky and said with a frown, "It's definitely not starlight. Could it be the power of the night?" Sealing the astral winds in the endless night was not a bad choice. My soul power is too low, so I can't sense it at all. I can only guess. It's not the night, but it's really rare for you to think of this, Yuan Gaohan said with a smile. Not night? That's really strange. Yunxiao made a shushing gesture and began to guess with great interest. His eyes kept observing the starry sky, trying to find some clues. It's neither the stars nor the night sky. Under this starry sky, what kind of power of laws can hide the elemental power of the immemorial astral wind without a trace? Yunxiao's face suddenly changed as he cried out in shock, could it be the power of time? This time, it was Yuan Gohan's turn to be shocked. A huge wave was set off in his heart, and he was a little stunned. He looked at Yunxiao in a daze and muttered to himself, how did you guess it? Even Han Yinshan doesn't know about the laws of time. As expected. Yunxiao's eyes flickered as he looked at the starlight in horror and said, it's actually the most difficult power of time to figure out. The person who sealed this wind must be a god realm existence. With such power, even the immemorial astral wind can be annihilated. Why is there a need to seal it? Yuan Gaohan was also taken aback. He had never thought about such a question, and now that Yunxiao had pointed it out, he also felt that something was wrong. Moreover, his previous speculation seemed even more nonsensical now. Then how do we break it? Yunxiao looked at Yuan Gaohan and asked. He was just curious about those questions, but it didn't matter. Even if there were any questions, they would have been buried after so many years. It was only then that Yuan Gaohan came back to his senses. He no longer dared to underestimate Yunxiao, and even regarded him as an equal. It can't be broken. The power of time is very simple and can only seal the astral wind within 24 hours. As long as the sealed wolf star, jade husband star, and big dog star form a line, starlight will shoot down and open up the astral wind, allowing it to transform into everything. He seemed to have seen the power of the immemorial astral wind before, and his face turned pale. Yunxiao looked at the 3 planets and saw that the wolf sealing planet and the Daquan planet were already in the same line, while the jade husband planet was on the left in a straight line, and it would take some time for it to arrive. He stared at the 3 vast stars and asked, 3 stars in one line, it should be within the Z period. This means that the immemorial astral wind will appear once every 24 hours?